This episode of our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by Zapper. Zapper is one of the world's leading XR companies. Over the past 12 years, they've won numerous awards for memorable campaigns. They've democratized AR by making tools and SDKs that anyone can use. And they created ZapBox, the world's most affordable mixed reality headset. Most recently, Zapper worked with Unilever to create an enhanced QR code called Accessible QR, which enables packaged goods to speak to the blind and partially sighted. If you're thinking XR, give the team at Zapper a call or visit zapper.com to see how they can help you on your XR journey. Good morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink with Ted Shilowitz and Roni Abovitz for This Week in XR. It's July 12th, 2024. Good morning, guys.
Morning. How's everybody?
Morning.
Good. Our guest this morning is Chandra Devam. She's the CEO of Arismd. She is a experienced entrepreneur. She's taken that company from an idea. They've done multiple rounds. I'm interested. They've been working on X-ray vision. So it's going to be a great conversation. She's always they started out in the medical area, but they've taken this whole X-ray vision idea to places like NASA. So it'll be great to catch up with her after she's based in Edmonton. So we saw her a lot, and then the pandemic came, and we never see her anymore. So it'll be good to have her. Busy news week, very busy news week. And a couple of big deals that I don't even understand. So I was hoping that you guys might shed some light on them.
Well, if you don't understand it, the chances that we don't understand it are even less.
Well, the first one I think is kind of understandable, which is that AMD, the chip maker who is number 2 to NVIDIA for AI chips. So they're number 2 with 5% of the market.
Yeah.
So they're playing catch up.
The bullet, as we say.
Yeah, they're playing catch up, and they bought a company called Silo for $665 million. Now it's an AI startup. They bought it for $665 million. So I'm thinking they've got 3 or 4 employees.
Yeah, maybe chump change, I guess, for AMD, right? We'll see what happens. Do we know much about them? Do we know what this company you said AMD bought them with?
It's a lab. I think one of the things to think about is, like, I don't think they bought them for revenue. I think it's just a mind share. It's a bunch of smart AI scientists in Europe, and I think it's just like, it's hard to get mind share in the United States. They're like, you overpay. So I think what they did is they just got a bunch of smart scientists in Europe. That's what happened.
Interesting.
Like an acqui-hire, so now they're AI. Think of it as like growing. My take is growing the AI software team inside the company. And you're probably paying $2 million per head, or 10 million. Actually, it's probably like 10 million a head. That's probably what they paid.
So now we have Captions. Do you guys know about this company, Captions? They automatically dub videos into foreign languages. They actually have a free app called LipDub, and it lets you make 30-second videos in other languages. I think I was emailing this around as a meme, right? Because the lip sync is perfect, right? I could be speaking Chinese. It would take the sound of my voice and manipulate my lips so that it looked like I was speaking Chinese. Anyway, these guys
I do know these guys. This is like you said, this is the company that does that app. I've used it to do some demonstration stuff to show that we could turn languages for TV shows and movies into other languages without the bad
on the fly, no subtitles. Looks. I mean, I think it's fantastic technology. So no surprise, big raise, 60 million to go on top of the other 40 million that they raised in the past couple of years. So good on them. Then there was here's the deal I really did not understand. So Infinite Reality raises $350 million, and then they acquire LandVault for $450 million. So I'm not quite sure what these two companies, I guess Infinite Reality has the Drone Racing League and something called the Ethereal Engine. Do you know anything about this?
I didn't realize drone racing was such a big deal, quite honestly.
It looked like they bought the drone racing league for 250 million.
Yeah, I guess there's money there somewhere.
You know what
So-
this is, Charlie? I'll tell you. Sometimes you'll have a PE fund, a private equity fund, or family offices. And I think this is the family office thing.
Yes.
They'll just create a shell company that just goes and buys a bunch of other companies. And they just do a roll up. Like it's sort of a financial engineering thing. Like they go, we got billions of dollars sitting in family money. It's just let's go buy a bunch of things. And then I think what was going on a few years ago is they would just SPAC that thing,
Right.
take it onto like a backdoor IPO. But those haven't worked out that well. But I still think there's people who kind of think like, let's just roll up a bunch of things, mash it together, and then use like PE strategy, like we'll fire all the people and we know how to manage stuff better. And like, they kind of work, they kind of don't work. That's my guess on what this is, but
No, I think I think you're right. They said that it is a multifamily office focused on global technology, media, and real estate, which is global technology, media, and real estate. That's like pretty much everything that is not manufacturing.
it sounds like a bunch of really wealthy family office guys sitting on an island in Bermuda, and I'm totally making this up right now. It's something totally different going like immersive, and we ought to buy real estate and crypto and drones, and yeah, let's go do that. And like, then go hire a banking team and just start roll a bunch of companies,
So,
who knows?
so couple of tidbits here about AI in Hollywood, which is something uh, of interest to us. There's a new company called Odyssey. They just came out of stealth, and they've raised $9 million, and it's guys who come from special effects guys together with guys who come out of the self-driving car technology business have teamed up to create Odyssey, which makes high definition cinema quality AI. So you can now like prompt things that are editable, and things that it's not just upscaling. The output is 8K.
I know the CEO. This is a real company. What I mean by that is like these are actually really smart people. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But
I mean, when you look at Runway raising $500 million, what are these guys going to do with 9 million?
I think money and actual outcome are not well correlated in AI, because you could take $500,000 and just buy a bunch of NVIDIA servers and have the wrong plan and fill it with data that you think is the right set, and it doesn't work out. Like it's actually a really weird thing. And you might have another group with a different path, and their algorithms and their thinking is like sparse data or something, and that works a lot better. So I mean, you've already seen a bunch of AI companies spend billions and they're just tanking, because most of the money is like acquiring big data sets legally or quasi legally, and then tons of NVIDIA cards, which is why NVIDIA's market cap. And then like you take a couple shots on goal, and if it doesn't quite work out the way you hoped, you're done. So it's weird. The beneficiaries are like AWS, Azure, NVIDIA, AMD. They're just accepting this money from a bunch of companies taking shots on goal. But I don't know, a little company with smart people may do better than these big burn things.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that thesis. That may be one of the most insightful things you've ever touched on, Roni, is the reference to the picks and shovels guys in the gold rush in San Francisco were the guys that made the money, and all the folks, trying to mine gold. Well, every once in a while someone mined some gold, but truthfully, who made the money were the guys that had the general store, right? That sold the shovels and the heavy loaders and the pans for gold. And if you look at NVIDIA and AMD is trying to do, and what 12 other companies are trying to do, and the big data servers companies, they're the modern picks and shovels guys. They're the guys selling all the services to all the startups trying to mine gold. And to your point about money doesn't correlate well to success, is the heart of the why, right? Is a lot of those companies that are raising money to go out and be in AI don't have strong enough why. Why the hell are they doing this? What is the reason? What is the value point? Some do, but many don't, or many have a false illusion that they do. And 99% of these companies that people are investing in will go the way of the dinosaur. The ones that will survive and thrive, AWS, Azure, Google, Apple, etc.
NVIDIA. You know what's
And
interesting? They should just take the money. There's a lot of LPs that are putting money into venture who give it to a startup, who give it to NVIDIA. Might as well just like give the money to NVIDIA.
Exactly.
But the problem is then nothing will be happening.
But that's
right? But
exactly
this is an
right.
indirect cash flow to NVIDIA. That said, I do think out of the thousands of startups, and I'm biased because I'm in that game. I'm one of those startups, but I do think within that, just like in the internet, there's going to be a handful of companies that are on a track that is dialed in, and a lot of people are just spraying money in a bunch of directions.
Someone's going to stick the landing. Let's hope it's you, Ronnie.
So,
if you will.
So other cinematic AI news, Kling, the Chinese Sora, has been putting out videos. They're doing what OpenAI did with Sora, where they've got select creators have access to it. So I don't know when they're anticipating actually launching it, but the videos are going bonkers on Chinese social media. So I'm on the wait list with another. I think they said 100,000 people are on the wait list. So we'll see, but so much happening in this area of video generation, and a lot of the sort of shorts and experimental music videos and stuff that people are making are, getting more and more interesting. So great area to be following. But as you said, Roni, there are so many of these companies. I think we've been talking 5, 6, 7 of these companies are just not going to be here next year. It's just too many.
Charlie,
they can't
one quick
possibly
comment
work.
on that. Like, you know, we talked about the power law before. I think there's going to be a power law on these companies, but also power law on creators. There's going to be like a handful of the top 1% creators that use these tools and make genuinely amazing short videos, films, features, new things, games, worlds. And then there's like 99% junk, right? That's just a very long tail. And a lot of these companies are serving a long tail that may or may not work out. So I think the winners will be TikTok, right? Because they'll just take anything and they want all the eyeballs.
Right.
So it's kind of like all this money is just helping TikTok. All this money is helping YouTube. How do the runways make money? Because you're basically giving something to people who put it on TikTok.
Well, people like me pay Runway.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, Runway sells subscriptions, so they have significant revenue from that.
So the sub revenue will fund the creators who are in the torso and the upper middle, paying Runway to get to the top of the head of TikTok. I mean, that's kind of like the economy of this thing, right?
Yeah, it's another picks and shovels, right? But I read a really interesting intelligence report from Sequoia, which is one of the big Silicon Valley investment firms, talking about already the amount of capital that has been poured into this sector and the anticipated return, even in the best scenario of people subscribing to these services and using these services, is so far roughly like 8 to 10% of the investment capital that has been put in. So they're expecting this kind of crater crash where suddenly, all at once, the entire market will realize this stuff is really cool, but we put $600 million into this company, and they have no way to ever return that $600 million unless they get acquired by some big tech, like an NVIDIA or an Apple or Google. And how many of those are actually going to get acquired? And the whole market is going to essentially crumble on top of itself. And I don't necessarily.
And in that crumbling will come the survivors. I mean, this is exactly what happened in like 99, 2000, 2001 with the internet, and the internet crashed because it was overfunded. But then the strong surviving, smartly planned companies came out and then created like what's now trillions of dollars of market cap.
Right. The Phoenix rise from the ashes, and they figured out a way to actually economize this thing. And that first layer of investment kind of goes away, and the second layer of investment starts to make money back. And I think that's right. Yeah.
Chandra's going to come in and join us from the green room.
Ooh.
Live and in person. Yeah, there's more to talk about that I just sort of blew off so that we could keep the show moving along. Because there were announcements about Bixby this week. Remember Bixby?
Yeah, sure.
Bixby is back, baby. Galaxy 15 or whatever, they get the new Galaxy phone is going to have Bixby.
Bixby AI.
So it's there's more info about Siri too coming out, because they're launching Apple AI with the iPhone 16 this fall, but it's not going to include Siri. Siri is next year. So I was a little disappointed and totally not surprised. So, and then Samsung came out and said Bixby is here. So
Yeah.
the battle, see, we were just talking, Chandra, about the battle of the image generators,
Okay.
and so, but really, that is a much, much bigger battle. Welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Hello, good to see you guys. I
Do you-
know two of you. I do not know Ronnie.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Chandra is the co-founder and CEO of Arismd, and I was just telling the guys I haven't gotten an update on Arismd in a while because they don't let you out of Canada anymore. So,
Oh, I've mostly been out of Canada. They didn't let me out of Canada for a while, and now I can't get into Canada basically. Yeah, so it's an imaging company, and we do 3D imaging with DICOM. So we compile it into 3D instead of slicing like an MRI or a CT scan. We've got medical pilots going on. We have recently moved into animals. So a good friend of mine has a horse rescue, which I got very passionate about. It's called Moon Mountain Rescue and Sanctuary. And I started working with their vet. So we're basically doing the same thing with people, but on horses and animals. You can do things a lot quicker. So I'm bringing VR to horses now.
I got to add one thing to that. Oh, go on, Ted.
Okay, Chandra and I know each other very, very well. I've been advising her company and looking out for what they're doing a little bit. And you should back up a step for our listeners and explain what DICOM data is. Just kind of glossed over it. It's a huge deal. It's a very archaic file format that needs a lot of updating and a lot of smart people to bring it into modern times. So I'll start it there and let you take over. You should explain what you're doing with DICOM and why it's so important.
So DICOM is a standard medical imaging file type. So it's a CT scan, an MRI scan, an ultrasound. It's all done in a format called DICOM. That Ted is right, is not friendly to users. Basically, doctors then, I'll take an MRI or a CT scan, it takes an image in 3D, but then they image capture like every 4 millimeters or every millimeter and grab a slice, grab a piece, and they throw all the rest of the data away. So they're only looking at like segments of you. It's just too much for the human eye to go through. And Aris looks at a true digital twin, what would be a true digital twin of yourself. So you see the whole brain, the whole heart. And we differ so much on the inside that they really need to see the whole heart and the whole brain, especially if you're looking for little micro issues. So we have sub-millimeter accuracy. So if you were to look at it, it would look like Chandra's heart. And you could look at it in VR or AR and transpose it on the body or just on a computer screen. So it's revolutionary, and we won a whole pile of NASA awards for it and a bunch of other awards for it. So we've been using it with people with like rockets, all kinds of different things, because they use commercial CT, industrial CT for imaging pipelines and inspection on big mechanical things that you might not want to throw a person into, that it might take a long time for them to go into. And now horses. So
think of the equivalent, like just to give you a sense of how archaic DICOM is, think of the equivalent of MS-DOS, and that here we are in the year 2024, and the entire medical industry, one of the most profitable and important industries in the world, still kind of lives in the MS-DOS days. And the computer industry, check my math, I believe has moved on from MS-DOS to a much more sophisticated sort of user interface and data field collection and value point, right? To the point of what game engines can do now, right? The medical industry is still sort of stuck in like 1981, and they can't pull themselves forward, right? So what Chandra and Scott are doing are trying to get these folks to move forward and build new standards and new ways to capture, hold, and visualize data. It's a really, really important sector in science that is very underthought and undervalued right now.
Chandra, I'm going to give you a very quick thing because you brought up horses. my first tech company was a company called Mako Surgical, doing imaging and robotics. So I think super familiar with what you're building. But one of our early surgeons was a guy named David Seligson. He might be retired. He had a
Mhm.
big horse farm in Kentucky, and on the
Oh.
weekends, he would take injured thoroughbreds
Mhm.
and he would do complex orthopedic surgery on them. And he
Mhm.
had to build all these custom X-rays, and he was trying to figure out how to use our stuff on the horses. But these were horses that would normally be put down. But he had made his name saving soldiers in Vietnam whose legs were completely shattered. They were like bone dust, and he did the same thing with racehorse. So when you brought that up, I was like, I got to actually see him do a surgery in Kentucky. It was kind of amazing.
Horse surgery is so cool too. So we're working with Dr. Cam Stout right outside of Dallas.
Very cool.
Again, on really, really expensive, fancy horses. And a horse hospital is amazing. Like they have a crane, and the amount of MRIs they do on horses is incredible. But how cool to watch orthopedic surgery on horses, and like so nice that he was helping horses that would like otherwise be put down.
Yeah, it was very cool. That was his weekend. He would save people during the week and horses on the weekend. It was really great.
I bet he
And
was a great person. So I'm not so original to think to try horses instead of him.
It's a good thing though. Not enough people do it. Not enough people do it.
Well, I'm glad that you guys got to meet because of Roni's biomedical background.
Okay, yeah.
Unfortunately, I should have mentioned this at the top. Roni is going to bop out of here in a few minutes because he's got a hard stop. Yeah, he's got a
Maybe I'll
grown-up
ask you one
meeting.
more question. One more
Yeah.
question. Yeah, I've got a tech meeting in 2 minutes, so I'm short on this meeting, but apologize for that. I spent a lot of time in imaging in
Mhm.
Mako Surgical. We did a lot of work with some of the main imaging players at during Magic Leap with like GE and Siemens and Philips. And I'm on J&J's digital surgery board. So first of all, I'd love to
Mhm.
see what you're doing and show it to them.
I would love to show it
And
to them
secondly,
too.
like, is there in like a 1 minute, if you think about what you might get from a GE or Siemens, like, CAT scan MRI, what it does
Yeah.
in their workstation, what are you guys doing beyond that? Just maybe really quick, and then we could
Well,
always have a follow-up.
I value up what they're doing like incredibly. Like their machines are being so underutilized. And it's to do with like radiologists wanting certain data sets done a certain way. But those machines are incredibly powerful cameras. So it's like taking a camera that used to take digital, basically a Polaroid, and giving it like high resolution digital imaging. So yeah, we make them worth a lot more and used a lot more efficiently. I actually plan to eventually replace, radiologists completely. We have the granted diagnostic patent for AI on anything. So
Ooh.
yeah,
I would love to see more of it. I'll talk to Charlie and Ted about how to
for
get
deep
in
tech.
contact with you.
Yeah,
But if you do want to show anything to the folks at J&J and the right way, I could help you with that. So
definitely. We're big fans.
awesome. All right. I'm sorry I can't be on long,
Nice to
but good
meet
luck for
you.
the rest of
Yeah,
the show. Great meeting you. Bye,
you
guys. Have a
too.
great
Bye,
Friday.
Roni. So, Chandra, why don't we
Yeah,
sort of back up a little bit because we really just kind of jumped into the middle of the conversation, as always. But let's back up a little bit. When did you found Arismd? See, Ted and I know all this, but the people who are
yeah.
listening to us don't. So maybe we should just start at the beginning of your inspiration for founding the company, how you and your old friend got together,
Oh,
and where you are now. It's at this point, it's been 8 years, right?
oh, longer. So we
Yeah.
founded in 2014 or 15.
Yeah, so that's 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. And that was just when, well, I'll back up. So my co-founder and I, Scott, this is not our first rodeo. Our first one was probably when we were 11. We met when we were 11, and it was probably selling, lemonade. Actually, it was selling ourselves, but that sounds terrible. But we used to I had a business where I rented children out as laborers in the neighborhood, but it was like to mow lawns. It was good child labor since I was the CEO.
Uh-huh.
So, and I was a child, but then our first tech company was stock predicting software. Then the next one was the keyboard for the iPhone and iPad, or elements to it. I mean, I'm sure it's changed a bit since then. And then it was Aris in 2000. 14, I think. We just sold the past company and we were at CES, and CES was really uninspired that year. I don't know if you guys were there, but Eureka Park was basically 3D printing and nothing else was going on. So we went to an Irish pub, and I'd recently had like a surgery and had a complication that didn't make sense to me, and was kind of mulling over why did that happen? And it's because, internally we're all different, and the placement of our organs are in completely different places. And I was like, cool, like we should give surgeons x-ray vision so they can just see where that placement is. But then we were at CES at an Irish pub, and I was like, we should found a company. And I think we'd not been out of the last company very long. And we started writing the provisional patents there. And this was right when some kind of interesting stuff was happening. So Google Glass had come out, and I was like, that is so interesting. And Oculus had just sold to what was then Facebook. And I remember when, I'm old enough to remember when VR originally came out, like in the 80s, 90s. And I thought then, hey, this is going to really revolutionize everything. This will be how people buy real estate. This is how, do you remember that awful movie? It was awful, but kind of cult classic, Lawnmower Man. Like VR was the thing, but technology was not there to support it yet. So when it circled around, I went, oh, this is interesting. Like, what could we do to push people forward? And I thought medicine, I thought gaming was going to be a huge thing. So I patented a whole bunch of wearable stuff. I actually have a granted wearable haptic in anything patent as well. But I thought, like, where else can this hit? So tech wasn't there to test it yet. I think like Epson had some really rudimentary AR glasses. Do you guys remember those?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, and definitely there wasn't a lot you could get your hands on commercially. OGG had some cool things, but you couldn't get them, and like they were actually really good. So we wrote the patents, then we started building the software in basically my basement in Canada without anything to test it on an air gap computer. And we filed the patents, got all of that going, wrote the code, and then could finally test it when we got the original Oculus dev kit and then the original HoloLens, and was like, cool, it works, which was great. But we filed so many patents because we weren't sure what vertical the technology was actually going to run with, like where it was going to land. So they patented the whole health space, and now those are starting to come pretty valuable. But basically wanted to give surgeons x-ray vision, kind of be the Google Maps for surgeons, where they could make the map in VR, review, the surgical case, then in AR, transpose it on the body and see exactly where Ted and Charlie and Chandra's heart was if they were doing surgery. And then, also educate the patient. I didn't realize there were all those other verticals. And it's funny because I grew up in the oil fields, like in Alberta in Canada, where it's like Texas for Canada. It's oil and horses. And neither of those verticals occurred to me. What occurred to me was medicine, but again, they use industrial CT. We should have just been looking next door and saying, what else can we use this for? Did not occur to me. I'd been in Silicon Valley and was thinking x-ray vision for surgeons, but really x-ray vision for anything is what it ended up being once NASA had a look at it and other people said, so, if you can do this for a person, you could also do this for an airplane or a rocket. And I was like, oh yeah. And they're like, yeah, we've been trying to build this. Everyone has. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. And they said, and how did you do this? I'm like, in a basement in Canada. So I don't know.
Yeah,
You never know how to answer that. How come you could do this? I never know how to give that answer. I'm like, I don't know. We just could.
Yeah, other than medical, oil and gas, and heavy mining industry is the largest client of those kinds of imaging services in the world.
And
So,
aerospace. It goes energies, then aerospace,
Yeah.
then medical. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just, I remember you were on the show before. You were actually on the show twice.
Mhm.
You were on show number 7 in October 2020, and then a few months later, it was March 2021. So that was show number 23.
And then I offended you, and you never had me
No,
back.
that we were apart for too long after that, and I just wasn't hanging out
Forgot
with
about
you,
me.
so I couldn't say get on the podcast. In fact,
Great.
I saw you at CES. We hadn't seen each other for years before that.
Yeah, I know. I'm so glad to CES and then South by, and
Yeah,
that's
South by.
So I
So
didn't offend you, you're saying?
yeah, no, you didn't offend me. I don't know if I'm going to do CES or South by again this year.
No, it won't be
I
this without
I was
you.
so
Let's,
exhausted, and I just, made me feel like, why? Why am I doing this to myself?
no, you guys had a great talk. You have to see the tech one. No, you do. Yours
We'll
was
see.
great.
Maybe I'll try and figure out a way to do both of them, but like in 48 hours. So I like just when the initial excitement of getting there is starting to wear off, I leave.
Yeah, do a talk at least. What will South by be without Charlie? No, honestly, I don't know
I don't
what
know.
it'll
South
be.
by they managed to get by without Charlie for the previous 20 years, so I'm sure they'll
Not when I was young.
soldier on for the next. But how big is Arismd now? How many people you got working on this after 10 years?
Yeah, we're pretty small team still because we built all that tech and we don't need anyone else to build it. So it's done.
Well,
Um,
so then what do? You're licensing it and helping clients implement?
well, so I'm currently, because it's deep tech, I'm valuing up each division. So I'm going about it with private capital, private equity market strategy where you have divisions of your company that split off into different companies. So the animal medical space will be its own division and company, and the medical human space will be its own division and company, and mining will be its own company. So we're getting pilots in each of those divisions, which then values it up. Then I'll do another giant raise probably, and then
How
or
much money have you guys raised so far?
oh because this wasn't our first rodeo. We only raised like 2 million. We just did a friends and family seed
Oh,
almost.
you mean because you had capital from the previous company that you reinvested, if you will?
Yeah. We were our major investors.
Right,
And still are, yeah.
right,
But now I have all these patents that are, coming up and they're pretty valuable. So honestly, I'll probably have to raise for the patents to go and have some friendly conversations. Even friendly conversations are expensive.
right.
But yeah, we
What do you
we
do in
did
that
a
case?
nice.
You have to go to the person who's using the technology that you have a patent to and do some consciousness raising and then negotiate with them?
Yeah, I mean, Ted, why don't you jump in here? What do companies do in this situation?
Well, it's interesting because before you joined, Roni and I were talking
Mhm.
about right sizing companies and the fact that over capitalizing doesn't necessarily map into success. In fact, it often maps into failure.
Mhm.
So what Chandra and I talk a lot, and Scott and I talk a lot about is where the market fits today. How do they lock in their patents on companies that may be doing things that will step on top of those patents, and those will be extraordinarily valuable.
Mhm.
At the same time as they are cultivating this sort of big problem solve, right? And really the biggest problem that they can solve, and it won't be solved just with them. It has to be kind of a consortium of technologies and imaging standards. Is how do you move off this archaic DICOM system that is so embedded in these hospital machinery and these hospital sort of approval states to actually move to a more modern file format that can allow all the things to happen. And then all those patents aren't theoretical anymore, they're all real. But until you get to that point where you say no one uses DICOM anymore, you can't
Mhm.
fully realize the dream of what they're working on. So eventually they will go to a Siemens and to a GE and to a J&J and to Pfizer and all these other companies and say, it's time. Like, why are you guys still sitting on the equivalent of black and white monitors when the world has moved to color, and not just color, but
Quantum.
crazy high fidelity color and crazy spatial use case? And
Mhm.
why are you sitting here in the dark ages? And the reason is because of HIPAA compliance, because of safety, because of all the things that are extraordinarily valuable. But we get that it might take 10 years, but it can't take 50 years because a lot of people will die in those 50 years that could
Yeah.
be helped with this kind of technology. And that's really kind of where the company sits right now. Did I sort of state that well?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some secondary points there. So there's different if companies are watching and wondering like what they would do, you can hire law firm. Well, you get some lobbyists first. You want to have a lobbyist on the left and the right, and you want them changing some of those laws in the background. But you also want them. They're attached to firms that you can hire on contingency, and so you have a couple ways you can go about it. I mean, if you're in a nice position, you can hire them yourself and pay. Or you do contingency where you pay them after, or there's even like VC funds that you can raise with the intent to enforce your patents. But they take equity, and they take a lot. So it's kind of pick your poison or pick your perfect solution. We're in a nice place where we don't have to pick poisons. The other thing is, even back to what you were saying, like, I think Roni's was onto it there, where you go and talk to a Siemens and a GE and you say, let's cut out this middleman who's devaluing your company, and let's just talk, and let's talk to the lobbyists about changing things. That said, you still need patent or pilots to be happening to show, hey, this is like valuable to the medical field or the aerospace field or the veterinarian field or whatever the field may be. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, good.
Here's a question. When I
Mhm.
first met you, you guys were looking at taking like a Magic Leap or a
Mhm.
AR headset and putting it on a practitioner,
Uh-huh.
either in a surgical suite or in some kind of a hospital or office
Yeah.
setting, and they would like be able to look into you and get
Yeah.
X-ray vision. Is that
Yeah.
still part of the vision? Is that possible?
Oh yeah, it's totally possible. Although I would love to have, I think some of the AR tech still could be improved. Like, I want the AR contact lens. That's when that's definitely possible. We're more like, I'm like a camera again, or I'm the film. Like, we can take an image, and how you display it is up to you. If you want to put it on your wall, you want it in your wallet, it's up to you. But yeah, absolutely, they could use it that way. They can use it any way they want. I mean, but it can't be
Because
just,
my image was always, and when I was writing about the company, was
yeah,
always that the surgeon puts on the glasses and now they essentially, because they're mapping the
yeah,
CT scan precisely onto the patient, that they would then be able to see the placement of things like
just look at
organs,
things.
which was your original goal, to make sure that
Vertical, yeah.
that was the
Yeah, I think
original
that's
vertical that inspired you to start the company.
definitely, and I still think that's a really good business case. But there's so many other ones now. It's like you could do, vehicle inspection or mechanical inspection. Like, there's other options. So it doesn't just
Hmm.
have to be a surgeon. You could also have AR glasses and be a technician and be like, there's where the crack is. I have to weld it or
Hmm.
whatnot.
Hmm.
Or, if you want to, I think AR is a really good use case for it, because it gives you a real-time visualization of what you're fixing or what you need to inspect. But, you could do it on a computer screen and go back and forth. I don't think it's the most effective. And I'd like to see AR more invested in. And there's a couple of companies that are chasing this contact lens, and I'd love to see them funded. So someone out there fund it.
Yeah, if you think about the AR part of this is just sort of the display technology part of it. It's actually fairly low density, and it's this concept of paint by numbers, right, where you kind of overlay the patient's telemetry on top of the actual patient, so the surgeon can do this. Is actually there are a number of companies that are doing this practically, using it. But the real magic that Chandra's company is working on is a much higher density field of data that actually replaces something that is, like I said, much more archaic and doesn't make any sense anymore, other than the fact that we're just stuck with it. The
Yeah.
downstream effect of that is you can use an AR glasses to take a tiny subset of that data in real time and
Hmm.
display it on top of a patient and do the actual surgery in a paint by numbers effect. But that's, even though that's sexy, kind of cool
It's
stuff,
totally sexy. And
that's not
actually,
the
like,
real power of this. Yeah.
it's a good vertical though. And Charlie tried my original like beta, I demo, I guess, like, that I had at trade shows, and it worked really well. I mean, because we had good image recognition, would track to the patient. Like, we have some stuff with that other people couldn't do, but yeah, our brain power is focused on, I guess, bigger problems now. But yes, definitely, I still think that's how surgery should be done. I don't know why they'd be doing it any other way. I think that it pushes AR into an area that is more commercial than less. Where is AR at? Like, what are most users using it for? I'm not dipped
Well,
into
it's interesting in the sort of short-lived heyday of the Microsoft HoloLens,
it's
there was a
great.
university called Case Western that was doing a lot of this, and you can still go on the Case Western website or even the Microsoft website and find
Yeah.
It's called Holo Anatomy,
yeah,
and they
you
spun it
can see,
off as another company.
yeah,
Okay.
Case,
you can see it in this case.
it was spun off from Case. They have their Holo Anatomy program with the HoloLens. I think at half a dozen other universities now. They're trying
Yeah.
to commercialize it for anatomy training.
Correct.
That's a good use case, but like, is the normal user, like, is there, I know Pokemon Go was huge, but is there like another game or platform that people are using AR like really a lot with? Like the
Well,
majority, not surgeons, but like kids and people. What are people using it for right now?
there are a couple of cuts at that, but it
Yeah.
remains as it has been for really the past 7 or 8 years that mobile AR is
Mhm.
that's what people do, right? I
Mhm.
mean, Snapchat is
Mhm.
AR,
Yeah.
and all those snap filters, just like Pokemon Go, are
Yeah.
AR. They're using the pass-through camera on your phone to show you probably the world's most narrow field of view
Mhm.
imaging device, and they're making a business out of it. And AWE, both Snap and Niantic, the maker of Pokemon Go, had major announcements, as did Zapper, the company that sponsors our podcast. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of areas, a lot of interest in this. Now, at the same time, Meta is pivoting hard to mixed reality. Right.
Yeah.
Again, using the pass-through cameras on the Oculus Quest. I think that's promising. It
So
hasn't.
the original Oculus, we were looking at the code, and they always had the ability in there. So we knew that they were always going to be heading in that direction. So it's good to see they're doing it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
there
it'll.
hasn't been a lot of content developed yet, but the capability of the Quest 3 to do it
Mhm.
is interesting and an encouraging direction.
Mhm.
But it's, so on one hand, AR is commonplace and
Yeah,
being used by hundreds of millions of people every day. But they don't know that it's AR. They just think it's
yeah,
Snapchat.
or a filter or whatever. Yeah, okay.
And I mean, that's when technology has really succeeded. It just disappears.
That's
Right.
true. Yeah, because
So
even
so I
I've
think
used
that
experience.
mobile AR
Mhm.
is penetrated, it's normalized. As we predicted 8 years ago, no one is calling it AR. They're just calling
Yeah,
it Snapchat, right? They
yeah,
don't need to. It's normal, it just is.
yeah,
Now, in terms of the glasses area,
yeah,
um, both Apple and Meta are using pass-through, not see-through,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
it's the same
Mhm.
technology that Snapchat and Pokemon Go are using, just held up to your face, right? Wider field of view. The see-through glasses, which was always Roni's and still is
Yeah.
one of Roni's holy grails, have proven to be incredibly hard.
Hmm.
You have to, because of the battery, you have to take the battery. Since you have an external battery pack, you may as well take all the heavy compute and put it all in an external puck. That's what Apple should have done. They only went
Yeah,
halfway with that. So they
yeah.
left a lot of weight on the headset. And
Mhm.
there are people like XReal who are making some advances.
Um,
I wouldn't say that.
Amalgamated Vision is pushing forward. You guys should
Who
touch
is?
base with them. Amalgamated Vision. Adam, he also won a NASA award. Like I think will get to the contact lens first because they've figured some stuff
Well,
out there that I
Mojo Vision was the big contact lens guys. They had raised several $100 million, I think, to
what happened with
commercialize.
them. Yeah, we were gonna talk to them. I haven't heard from them in a bit.
They pivoted away from the contact lens and instead are trying to commercialize the microscopic micro display technology that they had developed. So they said, "Oh, well, this technology can be commercialized.
Go. Yeah.
Good with contact lenses, maybe not so much, but there's all
I
sorts
like
of
them.
other applications. I think the contact lenses, how are they powered? I guess somebody has a patent that I talked to years ago that they can be powered by blinking.
Oh, I like that. Like tidal wave. Yeah, actually, I like that. That's smart.
So, there's a lot
Who's
of
that
problems to
company?
solve.
I'll talk to them. Let's get them
Um,
funding.
yeah, I'd have to dig back because that really is like
Yeah.
a pre-pandemic discussion with that company. They had a deal with Bausch and Lomb I think it was a
Okay.
developmental deal. So the fact that we haven't heard anything in so many years suggests to me whatever they were doing with Bausch and Lomb was a test or a pilot, and you obviously only hear about those things when they're getting ready to commercialize them. You don't hear about them if they don't work. So,
Or they work really well and somebody in government snapped it up.
maybe
That
that'd be a
happens more
James
than-
Bond thing. Yeah,
you know, in QTEL, like the CIA has a fund.
I
This
know.
happens.
Yeah, of course.
They're
It used to
right.
be run by Gilman Louis.
There you go. So it's not so James Bond. Like sometimes in deep tech, it's not odd for them to go dark for a bit and then pop up. I guess we were dark. We've been dark for a little bit, sort of. I mean, I'm still at places, but we had to be quiet for a bit.
Yeah, you guys don't put out a lot of press releases.
No, I mean,
Well, you don't
Scott
need to.
hates press. I don't need to. Yeah,
You don't need to. You've already got customers.
Yeah, people.
And you don't need money and you don't need customers. So why would you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Hence, you know, sometimes companies go dark. So maybe they had I'd be interested to talk to that company. And I think
I'll
that
I'll follow up with you offline. We actually have to get going.
Okay.
We're reaching the half-hour mark. We try and keep the shows as short and sweet as possible, but I love you. I love hanging out with you.
Yeah.
So I will send you an email right after we get off the call with a link to the story about the contact lens guy. Continued success with Aris.
Thank you.
Also, best to Scott.
Yeah.
Chandra's partner, Scott, is a terrific guy and a fantastic technologist, creative technologist. So always fun to see him and talk to him as well. He's like your
Twin.
He's like your the other Chandra.
Yeah, he is. People
You know, I will, before we wrap up, I will mention this on the podcast. This is, you know, so publicly, this is something that these are the things Chandra and I talk about. I'm curious, number one, if you or our listeners know that our friends at UCLA took over this gigantic space that used to be what was going to become a Google space. It was an old shopping mall that got replaced by the new shopping mall on the west side of LA. And it's humongous, right? I don't know how many millions of square feet it is, but it's a shopping mall, right? That Google was going to build a new campus on the west side of Los Angeles. And then because of COVID and the change in work dynamics and everything changing, they decided they didn't need it anymore. So UCLA was planning on building a multi-billion-dollar new campus. And they're like, why don't we just take that since you guys have already built it? So they made a deal. And now UCLA is taking over that campus, and the entire campus is an innovation campus. And a big portion of it is designed for medical innovation. So we should find a way, Chandra, to meet the right people, because it's going to take years for them to deploy this, right?
I have so many people
To
trying to
make
get me
that
out.
center the most advanced imaging provability center in the world. And maybe UCLA is the one that breaks the DICOM logjam ever, and we move into the future. And that's a really good inspirational thing for us to work on. So look it up. You can find it very easily. Just UCLA New Innovation
it.
Center, west side of LA.
Let's do it. All right.
All right, that's our show, everybody. Have a great weekend, you guys, and we'll see you back here next Friday, Ted.
Cheers. See you.
Bye.